Hi, Janet. Hi, Stewart.
Hi,
Hi
Miss
there.
Muggsy. How are you?
Fine. You guys have a lot of new developments, so I'm just going to sit back and have you guys teach us. You went to Atlantis. I think you've met David Icke. You guys have been working on stuff there. And I'm sure you have a lot of information on our new energies coming on, the 1111 portal. So where do you want to start?
Well, we could talk about our trip. We just got back last week from Atlantis.
That would be fascinating. Go ahead. And by the way, when you talk about opening a gate, I have no idea what that's like. So can you explain to us what exactly you're doing in detail, because we don't have a clue.
Well, neither do I, because I don't know what you mean about opening a gate. We don't do things like that. So we just explore and research what's there, and then we report on that. But we certainly didn't manipulate any energies. We just read them.
Okay, that's fair enough. I don't open any gates either. What did you guys do when you were there, and what did you discover?
Well, we started out from Miami, and we went really across the eastern Caribbean and into the Atlantic. We went to Dominican Republic, Tortola, to Dominica, Barbados, Antigua, St. Kitts, and the energies are so different in the different locations, because some of the islands we went to were part of the original Atlantean continent, like Dominican Republic, like Antigua, but some of the places were thrust up above the sea after Atlantis sank. For example, we noticed that in Barbados, that this was not part of the original continent, that this must have been a seabed that came up after the continent sank. So the energies were very different. And what was really interesting to us, because we didn't know really what to expect when we went on this trip, but we found that a lot of the energies seemed neutral. In other words, they weren't one way or another. It was kind of like a dampening field over the whole thing. So we had to look to see if that was a natural event that was occurring or if it was artificial. Now, some of your listeners and our readers may know that I talk about the entire Caribbean tectonic plate rising up. And that's why we had gone back in September to Central America, which is the western part of that tectonic plate. And now this time we were in the northern and eastern part of the tectonic plate, which is rising up. And if you look at the earthquake maps on usgs.gov, you will see, hundreds of quakes every single week occurring along the outline of this tectonic plate, particularly off the coast of Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic, and also near the Virgin Islands. It's just an amazing amount of earthquake activity going on, and this is because that section is rising up. Now, what's interesting is when this rises up, the water that's above it is going to be displaced. And so that's why I have been telling people in the southern part of Florida to really be careful, because when that rises up, your area is going to be getting inundated. South Florida is literally just inches above sea level. It really is almost in line with sea level. So that area is in big danger. And in Miami, it's a tremendous big city. There's a lot of people that are going to be in big trouble there. So we went to actually swimming with the dolphins in Tortola, which was quite interesting. We happened to get a 2-year-old dolphin, which wasn't quite, how shall I say, mature. It was kind of playful, and it was looking to have fun. It really wasn't interested in transmitting information. But we did get a lot of of energy from that dolphin and the other dolphins in the area. It was quite fascinating. But the alternative was that we went to swim with the stingrays. And, you know, they have gotten a very bad reputation when, of course, the researcher Steve Irwin was killed by a stingray a few years ago. And so it was a little, perhaps, nerve-wracking swimming with them. There were so many of them in the water swimming around. We actually had to take a smaller boat out into the ocean to this area where they congregate, and then we got into the water, and they were all around us. But we did have experts in the stingray demeanor, and he told us they will only sting you if you step on them or if you make very sudden jumping movements. That's when they will get upset and feel like they're being attacked. So you basically have to be relatively still or move very slowly, and they will come up to you and they'll even take food from you if you allow that. You could even pick them up and hold their wings and that kind of thing. So it was very fascinating. The energy of the stingrays was so different than the dolphins. The dolphins were playful and joyful, and they were just looking for a good time. And the stingrays were kind of more mysterious, more subdued, like they had a secret and they weren't going to tell you. So it was quite a good balance between the two species, which live in the same waters. Interestingly enough, when we got back, we got an email from a client of mine who said her daughter was stung by a stingray in the Bahamas not long ago. So you really have to be very, very careful when you're handling these creatures and diving with them, because they can attack you if you don't know what you're doing. We also noticed, in passing through the Bahamas, that the Bahamas was perhaps the most energetic and volatile region here. That was where the Atlantean energy felt the strongest, and I'm sure that it's because the crystals of Atlantis were located in this region. And when you travel through the waters there in the Bahamas, they're much more turbulent. You know, the seas.
We lost you.
Weather is a little bit more.
Okay. Did you lose both of us?
No, just Stewart.
Okay, you have to dial back in.
I knew that was going to happen. I don't know why there's so much secrecy around Atlantis, and I've noticed recently that there's been new YouTube videos that are going up that are complete a pack of lies. What did you experience, Janet?
Well, you know, what's interesting to me is that so many people these days are writing to us and saying, what's the big deal about Atlantis? And, you know, when I was growing up, Atlantis and Lemuria were like, you know, wow, it was just something to explore, and it was interesting. And, you know, we used to read about people's lifelines on all these different areas. And for some reason, these days, people don't know anything about it. And maybe because I know Edgar Cayce, those of us who grew up with Edgar Cayce and all of those kind of stories, you know, those are things that really made us, you know, wonder about the lifelines that we have there, because, you know, that civilization existed for 300,000 years. So there's a lot of ancient history there, and and I'm not aware of those particular videos that are coming up, but I will tell you, if that those are being put up over the internet, and if they are a pack of lies, the reason is because, as Stewart and I have been talking about, that there are some geographic anomalies that are being artificially enhanced to help the continents of Atlantis and Lemuria raise up again. And that is because those technologies are being brought back. Well, if they bring back the continents and they bring back the technology, like everything else, they want to be able to do that in a way that is controlled. They do not want the population knowing what's going on. They do not want the population having access to that information or the truth, and so therefore they're going to start setting up the frequencies for people to be led into their pack of lies. That's what they do with everything that's involved in history. We really do live a completely artificial history developed life, for lack of better words. Hello? Hello?
Oh, I'm here. I did turn Stewart back on.
Okay.
What I have read, and you guys can clarify this, is that there's some secret, like they're trying to say that the reptilian gods came down there and they're the ones that controlled it or usurped the authority and power there. And this is where Illuminati started, and they had the blue blood, royal bloodline. I don't believe any of that. I just don't think it's true. Can you guys set us straight from what you've learned?
Hi, Miss McDowell. Am I back on the air?
Yep, you're back. Welcome.
Yeah. I don't know where I got cut off for the last time. How much everybody heard. But to answer your question now, the blue bloods, the so-called reptilian blue bloods hybrids, they really didn't begin until after the hybridization projects in Sumer. Which was way after the end of Atlantis. In fact, Atlantis ended around 10,500 BC, and Sumer didn't begin till about 7,000 BC. So there's a 3,500-year difference between the two. And of course, Sumer had a history of humanity before the hybrids really came into being. In Atlantis, though, they did do hybridization experiments, but not with reptilians. It was more with, for example, mixing human with dolphin to create the merfolk, or mixing human with bear to create the Bigfoot creatures. So there was a lot of other going on, and even the legend of the werewolf began by mixing human with wolf. Back in the time of Atlantis, so the reptilian factor really wasn't an issue there until after the end of that continent. It was more located in Lemuria, which was not about hybridization. They were just purebred androgynous reptilians. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question or if I'm going in a direction
you're filling those voids because nobody's been able to bridge those. So Lemuria then is more about the reptilian, but Sumerian is where we start to get more of the history and we can research it. As far as I know, isn't the Atlantis experiment, now those were Palladians and who else? And what they were doing is they had the power where they could put their soul essence and create these, like you said, the mermaids, the what are they called? The half horse, half human, centaur.
Oh, the centaur. Yeah. They did all of these experiments, and what they were trying to do in Atlantis was create a race of being that would work in certain environments without the need of additional equipment. So that's why they did all these experiments with mixing genetics like that. And really, in humanity now, we have remnants of that. For example, there are children born with webbed feet or webbed hands or even with a tail, and these are throwbacks to the Atlantean experimentation. Even autism is a result of the mixing of human and dolphin genetics, and then the mix in our time now creates the autistic mental functions that we are now seeing.
Does it have anything to do with all the vaccines that they're giving?
Well, that's very interesting because the vaccines that they're giving are actually designed to open that up. And the reason they're doing that is because they're trying to identify segments of the population with a higher dolphin DNA, because they would become more of a threat to the control system, since dolphin DNA or dolphin brain is much more intelligent than human brain and has a very high capacity for non-physical capabilities. So they purposely created these vaccines to push open any DNA of dolphins in humanity so that they can identify who has them and then keep them drugged up or even eliminate them.
And what a lot of people don't realize is that the prescription drugs and even the illegal drugs and the vaccines, a lot of those are designed to actually close down the pineal gland. So what happens when people have these vaccines in them, as Stewart was talking about, when the pineal gets closed down, then of course that closes the doors to other realities that these people would have access to. And in addition, you may or may not be aware that there are actually laws in place that say that there should be no unsupervised contact between humans and dolphins.
That's fascinating. I did not know that. What about, God, I got like a gazillion questions. Okay, so they're trying to isolate, and I also know that every child born, there is a DNA sample that is then sent to the government, right? And they're registering everybody's DNA?
And they're taking blood samples, and, even people who go in for blood tests, if you notice, in the last few years, it used to be when you went for a blood test, they would take 1 or 2 vials, and they would let you know the results. Now, when you go for a blood test, they take 8 to 10 vials, maybe 12 vials for a simple test, and nobody ever asks why they're taking all this blood. And the answer is that they're using it also to store in other locations so that they can treat them radionically. And then, of course, wherever your blood is, it has your resonance, your frequency. So if they transmit something to blood samples that are stockpiled in a central location, they're actually broadcasting directions, mind control programming to all the samples and the people related to them.
Okay, the mind control thing is new to me. So let's say that there is a room with everybody's blood sample. Can they mind control from your blood sample by messing? I don't know. This is out of my league.
Well, okay, every person, every thing, every living thing and every non-living thing has a unique frequency, which no other person has that unique frequency. So it's like dialing a number, like no one has your phone number but you. So you have that particular frequency. So when they have a sample of your frequency, whether it's your DNA, your blood, your hair, whatever it happens to be, they can keep that someplace and radionically or psychotronically broadcast to it. And because that's your frequency, no matter where you are in the world, you will get that bombardment. So that's what they do. They have these warehouses of blood samples and other tissue samples, and they broadcast to them psychotronically and transmit these mind control waves. This enhances the psychotronic waves that are being beamed from satellite transmissions that are all around the world.
And what we teach people how to do, first of all, is to recognize what your number or your frequency is so that you understand this is me and this is not. So when these broadcasts are coming at you, you can identify that this is not me and therefore I need to stop it and not accept it.
And that's why I tell people to constantly use the brown merger symbol, keep themselves in violet protection, use the silver infinity of oversoul over their crown chakra. Do all of the techniques that I teach out there so that you can prevent and block the triggering and activation of these mind control programs.
Can you give some examples of what people have reported to you that you were being able to identify a mind control transmission?
Well, for example, I've had people tell me that they've been driving their car, and all of a sudden they have this sudden urge to turn into oncoming traffic, and they had never had that urge before, and then they didn't understand what that meant. That could be a suicide program being activated, or that could be a vigilante program being activated. There are other people that tell me, that they know they weren't supposed to go down a certain street, but they felt an urge to do so, and they just did it. Or they felt an urge to eat a food they know was not good for them, or all kinds of things like that.
On the news here recently, there was a story of a woman who was attacked a man in a wheelchair. She started biting his neck in a vampire-like attack, and she was arrested by the police. And when she came to her senses, she was in the police station. She had taken off, I can't remember if it was all of her clothes or just her top, and she had no recollection of attacking the man and telling everybody that she was a vampire. That is somebody who has been somehow or another bombarded, accepted the bombardment, and then act upon it. They basically do not know what they're doing or why.
In the last 6 months, there's been a lot of reports of people who suddenly go into vampire-like activities, attacking other people, biting, needing blood, wanting to eat human flesh. This has been almost on the news every couple of weeks, if not more. So right away we see this triggering of vampirism. Why is that? The vampire books are popular, the movies about vampires are popular all of a sudden. What does the vampire energy represent? Well, it represents being a victim, allowing others to take your energy and to use you. And that's what the Illuminati would like the population to do. So for them, it makes total sense to promote vampire-like activities, scenes, belief systems, so that people get enamored by it and they become willing victims.
And interestingly enough, there was a news article out here just within the last couple of days that was talking about the royal family actually 300 years ago did consume human flesh.
Yeah, they actually documented in a book, and I forgot who wrote it, or he's a British guy, and he just released a book about vampires, cannibalism, that kind of thing, and he writes that the British royal family used to boil skulls and distill them and drink the potions made from skulls. They would drink the blood of executed prisoners, eat flesh. I mean, this is documented now.
Yeah, and they're finding all the unmarked graves now. They're being dug up. Okay, wait. Explain the difference between the archons. Archons are the also vampiric energy suckers that will put thoughts in your head to do crazy stuff. And now we've got like satellite transmissions also being programmed towards us. How would we know the difference to be able, how do you explain that?
Well, they're basically the same group. The ancient civilizations talked about the archons, which were basically reptilian-like beings who preyed on humanity for different things. And so fast forward to today, and these archons have now embodied themselves in the Illuminati, in our government leaders, etc. And so basically, it's the same group. Nothing's really changed. Just the covering has changed, but it's the same thing.
I'm going to hesitate after Stewart so Janet can, because she contributes such great information. What about, the archons then are using the bloodline of the royal families and such, the 13 families, sort of like an avatar?
Well, basically, the Illuminati are descendants of them. And so it's a lineage that goes back to the first colonization of this planet by the reptilians, as I describe in my Blue Blood book. which talks about all of that. And so what we're seeing now is the coming out party, if you will, of the archon energy, which has embodied again, as I mentioned, in the Illuminati, and in hybrids who are a high percentage of reptilian, and then use humanity as their food source, their energy source, their slaves, etc. That's what they're attempting to do, to create a Borg-like society that is controlled by this small elite group that preys upon them and pulls all the strings.
And one thing that people don't understand sometimes is that this is the same control system that they use within their own society. So for them, this is like a standard way of operating, and they're just taking that control system that they use within their own society and then extending it to the mammalian population.
Yeah, that's correct, because to them, it's a normal way of life. Just like if we were to look at a shepherd with his flock, and we see how he's controlling the flock and telling it what to do, and etc., and then taking some out to eat, we would say, well, that's just normal, isn't it? Well, it's to the Illuminati, what they're doing is normal to them. They don't see anything wrong with it because that's their way of life.
So how do we break free? I mean, I don't want to live in that world, and I know a lot of other people don't. I want my mind to be my own and my energy to be happy. So where do we go now?
Well, and that's what our work is all about at Expansions, and that is to take back your mind, to use the 90% of the brain that you're not using, the 97% of your DNA that you're not using, or the scientists call junk, to deprogram from the mind patterns that have been imposed upon you, the victimization that has been instilled. But besides all that, we also need to come to an understanding that we, both as individuals and as a species, are responsible for our own experiences, thoughts, what we have attracted in our life and lifetimes. So yes, even though the Illuminati, reptilians, whichever group you want to call them, are perpetrating all of this upon us, we are allowing it because of our mind patterns. We are projecting out the victimization that then attracts the tyrants and oppressors. So the solution isn't in protesting and fighting and external manipulations. The solution is in going within your own mind, looking at the thought patterns that contribute to this and project it out, and eliminating them and replacing them with a mind pattern that is beneficial to yourself and others, so that everything can be changed. I always use this analogy, and my listeners and readers have heard this many, many, many times, but it's worth repeating, that the thoughts are like film, the brain is the projector, and physical reality is the screen. So if you want to change the movie of what's playing on this world, you need to change the film, which is the way you think. And then the movie of your life will also change. And you are the director and the producer and the creator. So you are responsible for everything you project out onto your screen.
And the first step is always awareness, as you're talking about, even with yourself. As much as you know, there is a lot that you don't know yet, and as we all are in that case. And so the first step is awareness that this exists, and that alone is mind-shattering for many, many people, because it just seems too far-fetched and too far out to possibly even happen. So once you develop that awareness and you start investigating for yourself and you come to specific conclusions, then you have the next step, of course, is to start making changes within your mind. But first of all, you have to be aware that there even is an issue. And once you get to that place, most people, the first thing is, well, I want to eliminate the Illuminati, or, how do we get rid of them? How do we make them go away? And as Stewart is talking about, you must go within. You must listen to your own mind. You must develop that point of personal power and throw off that victim mentality, which means, we have to bring things home. You know, there is a job. You're one person, you can get a job. If you need to sell a house, you know, you can sell your house. All these things that we accept from society that say we're powerless, that's what we have to turn around and say, wow, we are powerful individuals. We are hooked into the most powerful information and energy that exists, which is our oversoul and the God mind itself. So, you know, it's really about awareness and then turning things around and not accepting so easily what's been foisted upon us without question anymore.
I have read that the biggest secret, which is exposing this reptilian control group, would allow us to raise our energy because we do have the knowledge, we are empowering ourselves, and raising our frequency is going to provide a more positive timeline that they can't exist in, that they would go to another timeline that's less positive. Do you agree with that?
Well, I'll tell you what, yes and no, because all timelines exist simultaneously. So even right now at this very moment, there's a timeline where they are no longer in power. So it's really a question of connecting your mind pattern to that frequency where they no longer create this kind of issue and we are no longer victims or have a victimization mentality. So really, they only have the power we give them. And God mind allows free will and has created infinite timelines where every possibility takes place and has taken place. And so we just need to focus on the timeline in which we feel best suited to match our mind patterns and frequency. So if all of us, or even just as an individual, you release the victimization and no longer attract these kind of experiences, then you will not have to be in a timeline where that exists, and you automatically would transition into a different frequency where your experiences are more benevolent and reflect your true new mind pattern. So I guess basically what I'm saying is it's kind of like a radio station or radio, and you change the dial, and every time you turn the dial a little bit, it goes to a different frequency, a different station. So you've got to find the music you like, the frequency that is pleasant to you, and that's where you stay. And they're all there at the same time. We're not going to destroy any of them or change any of them. They all exist. It's just a question of which one you tune into.
Janet?
Yes.
Do you want to add anything?
Well, it actually is exactly what Stewart says, is wherever your focus is. And, you know, a lot of times it's a bit of a stretch for people to understand exactly what we're talking about. So what I like to say is, you know, if you're sitting there listening, let's say, to this show, you're very much thinking about, you know, mental things, or maybe you're picturing things, and you forget that you even have a body. So once we bring you back and say, oh, we have a body, then let's go down and let's say, well, let's think about the little toe. You know, if I don't say, mention the little toe, you're not even going to think about it. If, for instance, your little toe has got a sore on it, that's where your attention is focused. And you have a huge body, but yet you're thinking about the little toe. So wherever your focus is, that becomes your reality. So we've gone from feeling about a little toe to a body to maybe just being all mental, all head space, not even feeling like we have a body. So when we take a look at that and extrapolate that into other realities, it's amazing what exists. But first of all, take a look at what is in front of you at this particular moment in time and space.
I have read where I know we have like a lot of angelic individuals around us right now. I have heard, I don't know this is alleged, that the Illuminati preys on fallen angels. Do you know anything about that?
If you mean, well, I'll just say it in my own terminology. Basically, what the Illuminati do is connect to the lower astral entities, what religion or society would call demonic beings. That's the energy they connect to. That's the energy for which they create sexual magic ritual, where they allow or enable these entities to incorporate within a vessel or a body that is used in the ritual. And then once that happens, the astral energy is manifested into the physical, and then they can interact with that energy very easily, and it's a very complicated situation, and I describe it in my True Reality of Sexuality book and 13Q book. People are interested, and even in the DVDs, but basically what we're seeing is the Illuminati wishing to have the population think that they cannot connect to the God mind by themselves, that they need some sort of an intermediary that will connect them to the higher source. But, of course, that's not true. Every human being, everything that exists is already connected to its higher source. There's no intermediary necessary. But, unfortunately, in our society, people have been taught through religion, etc., that they cannot do it themselves. They have to go through a priest or the Pope or a politician or someone other than themselves in order to achieve their goals or to know who and what they are. So it's kind of a bait and switch. They take the information about the God mind or about spirituality, and they change it to adapt to what they want people to believe it to be, which is often very negative. Bloodletting and ritual sacrifice and all these kind of things that are going on that you even see written about, movies about, all very negative, and that's where the vampire thing comes in, connecting to the lower astral. So as far as angelic entities are concerned, I write about and talk about a lot about how we are that. In other words, it's part of our oversoul configuration or composition. It's just another frequency of a higher level of ourselves. So it's not like an angel will come in to intervene on your behalf, but rather your angelic side, that higher side of yourself, will connect or help you in your activities if you are open to that and allow that energy to flow through you. And what we're seeing right now on our planet is literally what's described as the battle between good and evil, or the final battle of Armageddon, if you will. It really isn't so much physical as it is spiritual. It's an internal battle within each one of us to say, okay, what is our manifestation going to be? Are we going to do benevolent good things? Are we going to do evil negative things? Will we help and uplift ourselves and others, or will we use others and be used by them? That's the question that people should be asking themselves right now. And Miss Muggsy, every day on the news, all you have to do is look at CNN, Fox, AOL, pick one, BBC, and you will see stories about parents killing their children, men raping and killing the females, people blowing up buildings and each other. I mean, honestly, it's just the most unbelievable path of destruction that we see both on a personal and group basis. In every continent, there's no place that's immune from it. I mean, there's even stories in Antarctica about negative things that are going on in the bases that are there. So every place is affected now. The Illuminati know that perhaps their time is numbered. There's a lot of factors, a lot of possible things happening out there, and so they're getting a little worried, a little concerned about their agenda, and they're speeding it up and intensifying it. And one of the things that they're doing in association with these demonic entities is they have created that Hadron Collider in Geneva, and also the Fermi Labs particle beam accelerator in Aurora, Illinois. And what they're doing is connecting to timelines or simultaneous existences where the Illuminati have achieved their goal, where they are in complete domination of this planet. And then they're trying to collapse that timeline into our timeline, to merge them together so that we become aware of the power of the Illuminati and their domination and acquiesce to it. And that's why we're seeing all these ritual sacrifices every place, all this negativity. Almost every day you read about someone going berserk on an airplane and trying to open the door in flight, or trying to get into the cockpit, or some story about attacking and about doing negative things is on the news every single day. And so each one of us needs to not be influenced by those stories, because they are designed to affect us into fear. And when we go into fear mode, it opens up the crown chakra and the pineal gland so that programming and mind control can enter and take over. And when someone is afraid, they will listen to anyone telling them what to do to save themselves, even if it's not a good thing. If you're locked up in a room and someone said, "Oh, there's a fire, but I know the way out," you're going to follow that person, even if you never heard of them before, or even if they don't know where they're going. You're going to hope that they're telling you the truth. So that our planet is like a room that's locked up and caught fire, and we're listening to this Illuminati person who's saying, "Hey, I know the way out. Follow me and do what I say, and you'll be okay." So that's kind of what's going on our planet.
Well, another thing, too, that people sometimes are not aware of is that every thought that you think is floating around out there in the atmosphere, unless you direct it, as we teach you, to send everything back up to your oversoul. Well, if you're not aware of that concept and you have all this energy floating around, the negative comes together and actually forms a negative consciousness, and that negative consciousness can then be harnessed by the Illuminati, by the global handlers, and used against you. So there are a lot of things that are going on out there that, without awareness, without people understanding the energetics of life, that they're leaving themselves open to be victims. And that's what we're doing our best to make people aware of, is there are so many fine points that you must take control of, that you must develop your awareness for, and then these people or what beings or whatever will go away. But it is your lesson, and that's why you're here, and this is why you have the awareness, so you can have the opportunity to overcome and move along with your life.
I think that is so pertinent, because a lot of people I have been watching that are doing child abuse or pedophile or animal abuse, then it comes back on them, and they're always complaining that they're the victim, but yet they actually victimize other people, so it's coming back right at them, whatever they are experiencing or expressing to other people or other animals. So I think that's important to note. But, okay, so we have the Illuminati now using these dark energies to collapse these negative timelines together. What do we as benevolent beings, we're not supposed to create any negativity, but what kind of help are we getting to move us into a positive timeline? Who's on our side?
That's a good point, Ms. Muggsy. Who is on our side? And you know what? This is where we run into trouble, because since the 1960s, mid-1960s, the so-called New Age movement said that our space brothers are coming and love, light, and peace, and they're going to uplift the world and blah, 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 blah. Well, here it is, almost 50 years later, and we're still in the midst of garbage. No space brothers are here. No one's coming to rescue us or save us. It's up to us. It's up to each one of us, and it always has been, to take control of your own self, and then take control of society and be who you are as a spiritual being, and not as one that's controlled or manipulated by others. Now, I will say, and I have said this on my website for a number of years now, there is a group out there in the Kuiper Belt that is or does have an intention of removing the Illuminati. But that doesn't mean that they're love, light, and peace either. It just means they have their own agenda and that the Illuminati are a threat to them. And here we are kind of stuck in the middle between two warring parties, and here we are having to duck and avoid the bombardment between the two. So there's a lot of factors coming up very shortly. In fact, they've already begun. NASA has already claimed that there are objects in the Kuiper Belt hurling meteors and comets at us. And they've also said that some strange energy from the Kuiper Belt has blocked the Pioneer spacecraft between Mars and Jupiter, and it can't move forward, and that energy is also bombarding the Earth. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on out there, and if you read carefully, even on conventional news, you will see that information given, even if it's just briefly. So, no matter who's out there, no matter what is looking to take control, it's really up to us. Again, I go to tell every person, go within yourself, do your mind work, your release work, grow up the child within, connect to your oversoul, send everything up to it, allow the God mind within to reveal itself to you and use that energy. The solution is within. Every problem comes with the answer. So there's no mystery, there's no confusion, there's no doubt. It's right in front of us and right within us to correct all of it. And it's simply a matter of, are you going to do it, or are you going to get caught up in the wave and get washed out to sea? That's a personal choice.
Well, oftentimes, too, especially I'm going to say with the New Age that came in, there was a lot of talk about God is love, God is peace, God is, beautiful. But we also have to remember that God mind contains all things. That means that God mind contains the negative as well as the positive. It all comes from the same source. And as a microcosm of the macrocosm, each and every person is not only positive, but also has negative. And it's to the degree that you allow the negative to express that determines what happens in your outer world. And what we need to do as individuals is understand the negative part of self and understand that the negative is not necessarily bad. It is a part of who and what we are, just as it is a part of who and what the God mind is. So we must study the negative within ourselves and know it. Because, as I mentioned earlier, that is the part of you that the Illuminati uses against you. And you allow it in because it is a part of you. And it grows and you allow it to manifest. You kind of get caught up like a hamster on a track running around in a circle. But if you know the negative part of yourself and you decide what you want to do with it, what you want to keep and what you want to let go of and what you want to utilize, and you get a balance in there, no one, no thing can use that against you because you are in control of that part of your body and that part of your mind. And I tell people, you have to think of the basic control pattern. Are you in control of yourself? For example, can you walk past a piece of chocolate and not eat it? Can you, what is it in your life that's controlling you? Because even a piece of chocolate or a piece of food or whatever, if you cannot control something, then that means you have within you the mind pattern to be controlled by an outer force. And that's what's happening. And they do that. Pornography is rampant throughout the Internet. And we have clients who are addicted to that. And that holds you open so that the mind control can come into your most basic creative forms and entry points of the physical body. There are a lot of things that are out there, whether it's drugs, whether it's alcohol, and as I said, whether it's a piece of chocolate. What are you addicted to? Some people are addicted to shopping or gambling. Maybe you're addicted to collecting shoes, for all I know. Whatever is out there, if it is controlling you, if you allow anything to control you, then you have within yourself victim mentality, and anything in the outside world can come in and control you. You must make choices. And my choice is not to let anything control me. And if I feel something is controlling me, I stop. I want to be in control. And to me, that's one of the most basic things that people can do. Make a list. What controls me? It could be a person that you're addicted to. You have a best friend that you can't live without. Maybe there's a partner that you want to have, or there's a television show that you can't go a day without watching, or a song, or an icon. What is controlling you? You must understand that yourself first, and then nobody and no thing can control what's going on within you or your life.
And if I would just want to elaborate on that and just emphasize that all energy is really neutral. It's mind that gives the energy direction. I could take a pot of water and boil it and make delicious soup and cook delicious things with it, or I could take that boiling water and throw it at you and scald you. The water is neutral. It's what I did with it that made it positive or negative, you see?
Same is true with HAARP. The HAARP was actually designed for benevolent purposes, but now it's being used for negative. In your experience, can you describe or identify, increase the awareness, what types of mind control are being used against us, just so that we can start identifying it?
Well, first let me say all mind control is negative and is not for good purpose. There's no such thing as a good mind control. But right now, what's going on is an activation of the Green Star umbrella programming, I should say, and specifically the Staged Alien Invasion Program, which is designed to make you believe that the Earth will be invaded by alien race, and that we all need to join together and give up our issues with one another so that we can fight this alien scourge from space. And that you're going to see happen next year, most likely around the time of the London Olympics in the end of July. So we've got a bit of a time between now and then, but it's already begun. They've already pretty much every week have some kind of story about something going on in outer space that could affect us, an asteroid, a comet, energy being bombarded, a quasar sending energy towards us that can destroy life. They're telling you about planets that are being discovered that are Earth-like and life that could be out there. So they're getting you prepared for the staged alien invasion and for accepting alien life. Another thing that's going on is the New World religion, which is being imposed upon the planet, and in order to create that, they have to get rid of the old religion. And so that's why we see, sex abuse in the church and Muslim aggression, and pretty much every religion is showing some kind of negativity in the news that sheds a bad light on it. And we're also seeing a recreation of the Crusades. We're seeing the Christians against the Muslims, the Europeans and against the Middle Eastern people. It's all a recreation of what happened 1,000 years ago. And it's like a final battle, which is also described in Book of Revelation, coming true. So that's two of the main ones. And then, of course, there's the sexual ritual programming, which Janet mentioned earlier about the pornography. There's pedophilia. There's just basically abuse against people in every possible way. I just saw statistics that said even men have been abused, and that out of every 6 men admits to having had sexual abuse at some point in his life. And since men don't like to admit that publicly, the number is probably more than that. It might even be half of all men have been sexually abused in their life, and maybe 3/4 of women, females, in their lifetime have had some kind of sexual abuse issue, whether it's inappropriate touching or worse than that. So the whole world has had victimization in one form or another. A big thing now is bullying. Which I find very interesting because it's the government bullying the people, really, but yet they're filtering it down to the school level, and you have 10-year-old children. I just read about a 10-year-old girl that committed suicide. What 10-year-old child knows how to commit suicide or even knows about that thing? No child should even know about that thing. No child should even have in their mind that they want to end their own life. Where is this coming from? This is all part of the mind control, because when people lose their children, that's when they sit up and take notice, and that's when they want change to occur. And then the issue becomes, what is the change that is to occur? Is it a change that the person wants and needs, or is it one that's being imposed on them by a higher power in order to gain more control of the population? So these are the questions everyone out there needs to be asking themselves, looking at the issues, and basically saying, what the heck is going on, and how am I reflecting that? Because even though you might think you're thousands of miles away from an event, if you're reading about it and you're learning about it, that means it's part of you. Otherwise, it wouldn't be in your mind pattern. So no matter what you're reading about, what you're learning about on the news, etc., what is within you that has contributed to that event on this planet? That's what we should be asking.
What about, what I noticed is a lot of people don't get involved until it hits home. So if somebody dies from a pharmaceutical drug overdose, then they start doing research. Or with the war, then they'll get hit between the eyes with that, and then they'll start to do their research. What have you guys experienced with your travels?
Well, I'll tell you this, Muggsy, it's very disappointing to me because when we travel and we go around the world, and literally there's like no spot we haven't gone, first thing is everybody's the same. I don't care what religion they are, what language they speak, what their culture. Everybody wants the same thing, needs the same thing, has the same goals and desires. All human beings want the same thing. So that's why I, first of all, don't understand why there's war and disagreements, since everybody wants the same thing. That's the first thing. But the unfortunate part is nobody's willing to do anything to make the changes. People are more likely to blame outside sources for their problems than look within themselves and see that they are responsible for everything. And most people, unfortunately, believe what they are fed by the news services and their governments about every event. They don't, they accept that Osama bin Laden was killed in Pakistan and dropped into the water. They accept that 9/11 was done by terrorists in the Middle East. They accept every event that you can imagine that's happened on this planet. They just accept what they're told. Why? It's easier to do that instead of to question it, because when you question it, then you need to find answers. And in order to find the answers, you have to undermine everything that you've learned in life about history, science, and politics. And people don't want to do that. And the reason they don't want to do that is because they are in desperate straits. People are looking for jobs, they're losing their homes, they can't afford gasoline and food. So you know what? They don't care about who's in power or who did what. They care about how they're going to get through their daily life. And the Illuminati very cleverly designed it to be like this so that you would not question anything because you're too busy worrying about where you're going to get your lunch. You see?
Yeah, it's all part of the plan. It's the distraction. Janet, I got a question for you. On your travels recently, I know you guys have met some really good influential people. What have you learned recently that was monumental for you that you can share with us?
Well, I think one of the things that I was noticing in this last trip especially was kind of, I'd like to study what's going on around me because it helps me to understand what's going on within myself. But I think because we were down in the islands, I really had a chance to think about the black indigenous races. And myself, I'm part Native American. I don't even know what the proper term is. I was always told Indian, of course, Cherokee. And I was thinking about how that people try to enslave that which they don't understand. And, of course, we were looking at some of the indigenous people down there and the ones that were brought in and the ones that were killed off, and a lot of death and destruction in this particular area that we were dealing with. And I think overall that everyone is always trying to find power over something else. And the interesting thing that Stewart and I have worked with is because the genetics that we as a human species have within us are both mammalian and reptilian, that the genetics themselves are warring because mammalians and reptilians are natural enemies. And so one of the things that we do is we actually work with merging the reptilian mammalian genetics within ourselves, which quiet the body, which then allows the spiritual mind to function. And I think that's part of what's going on here in this earth. If we don't understand it, we conquer it. We don't merge with it. And when you understand that the God mind contains everything, that it's really about bringing everything together versus taking everything apart. And so I think for me, one of my, in this last journey particularly, it made me take a look at the beauty that's within everything, at the dark side. If you are a person of darker color skin, you really are dealing more with the dark side of yourself, of the soul personality. And again, that doesn't mean doesn't mean it's bad. Everyone thinks negative is bad. That's not so. It's a part of the enrichment of the soul personality itself. And so we're bringing that in, we're merging it together. And I think that for me, that really is a key for a lot of people and a lot of parts of life. Let's quit trying to conquer something and let's start understanding and merging. And I think that we're going to have a whole different perspective on life. And in fact, when we think that this is really a reality of duality, I believe that it is a way of merging and morphing this reality into its next level of existence once we understand that.
Miss Muggsy, I just want to make a quick announcement to our listeners, our readers from expansions.com, because there was a discrepancy on the timing of this radio show. On wolfspiritradio.com, it was listed as 7 p.m. Pacific time, when in actuality it was 7 p.m. Mountain time. So, unfortunately, when we sent out the announcement for the show, we had listed it as the Pacific time, and so many of in fact, all of my readers who went by that have missed the first hour of this show. So I apologize to them for the error in the timing, and hopefully they will go back and listen to the archives and get the full program. So my apologies to the listeners who just tuned in now thinking it was the beginning of the show.
Yeah, that always throws us off with the time change, but the archive is available on Blog Talk. It will also be available on freethinkingradio.com, and it's also on wolfspiritradio.com. And I think it is on Free Thinking Radio. They play you like every Friday or something, don't they?
Actually, we are on Sundays from 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time.
Okay. Yeah, I know that JP does help with making sure that your show is played regularly because the information is so valuable. And they can find it on freethinkingradio.com, Blog Talk, and we'll post it as well so that they can get a hold of it. So,
thank you.
You're welcome. Stewart, and Janet, I agree with you. I don't know why, but I was thinking the same thing last week, and I've been having the same kind of epiphany. Stewart, what about you? What have you now learned that's been monumental? Either somebody told you, or you've had an epiphany, or you've revealed something. What can you share with us?
Well, that's a very big question, Ms. Muggsy. And, pretty much every day I have an epiphany. Usually it's personal to myself and what I've learned about myself. But one of the major things that I've learned in the last couple of months basically is that all of the negativity, the lower level energies, even though they're so painful, so hurtful, so unpleasant to get through, they're absolutely necessary for us in order to grow as individuals and as spiritual beings so that we can achieve the next level and not have to ever go back and experience that negativity again. And for many of the people out there that I know and for ourselves personally, this last year has been quite a difficult one, emotionally and physically. A lot of things that we thought were one way were really another way. A lot of disappointments, etc. And it was very painful, very hard to accept. But you know what? The big epiphany was it all came from the self-hatred that was harbored deep, deep, deep inside. And even though we had done our release work and our oversoul work and our deprogramming and grew up the child within, and we thought we were purging on every level, there was still that core part of the self that was self-hating, which is why it enters into physical reality in the first place. And you know what? Thank goodness for all those terrible experiences that we had, because it shed light on that self-hatred, and we were able to look at it and work on it and start to get rid of it, and then everything has started to turn around for the better. And it's like, I hate to use the analogy, but it's kind of like throwing up, and then you hate to throw up, but after you do, you feel better.
That was sick.
I'm sorry.
No, but you're right. I get, and even though like the Illuminati has done all this control stuff, but since I've started my awakening in the last year, I have learned and grown so much just in leaps and bounds when I look back, and that my soul is actually develop. I think everybody feels that way, even though it hasn't been a positive or enjoyable experience, but there is good at the end of the tunnel. What do you guys see for our future? I mean, here we are, we're coming on to the big 2012 scenario. What do you guys see for our future? Janet, you want to go first?
Well, I think, as what you said, there are going to be a lot of epiphanies for people. And this is often, it's darkest before the dawn. And these are the big opportunities that are out there for people to say, wake up and smell the roses. I've got to do something. I've got to work on myself. I have things that I need to conclude. I believe that humanity as a species is really getting ready for a next wave of evolution, of development. And I believe that some people or beings will move on through that once they have really learned what this reality is about. And I also believe that there are those who will not move along in that wave, and they will stay because they haven't learned their lessons, they have not completed the experiences, because I do believe that we are here as a finger of the God mind, experiencing and fulfilling knowledge and information as it learns what it is, and we give it back. And so some of us have completed. I talk a lot about the out-breath of God mind and the in-breath, and some of us, I believe, are really as far as the out-breath can go, and it's time for the in-breath, and others have not ridden the wave behave as far as it needs to go so that the God can understand itself. So I think there's going to be a split within the human species, and I think some will evolve on and some will stay where they are. And none of it is good or bad. It's just a statement of where everyone is. It's a status report.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that 2012, of course, as far as the Mayan calendar is concerned, the world is not going to end on December 21st, 2012. And on the morning of the 22nd, the sun will come up and everything will be the same as it was the day before. You know, from a control standpoint, that date was being used by the Illuminati as their target date for total domination and control of the world. But for us as individuals, that does not have to be the way it is. And as far as the Mayan people are concerned, and Janet and I were in Central America in September and met with Mayan people, and they said there is no end of the world. It's just a circle. It goes on and on and on. One cycle ends, another cycle begins. And they kind of laugh at Westerners for believing that the end of the world is coming, because they said that's been in their calendar many, many times over the millennia. You know, several times the world comes to a conclusion of a cycle, and then it starts up over again. And the Mayan calendar is really based on solar activity, and so that they're really talking about solar activity, not the end of the world. So that's one part of it. The second part is, I think that second half of 2012 is going to see a lot of volatile activity in physical reality that's artificially generated, manifested, staged, if you will. I would urge all people out there who will be around at that time to not pay attention to what the news is telling them. Don't pay attention to what leaders say to them about what's happening, because it's all untrue. It's all designed to control and create fear. You need to look at your own news for 2012. Look at what you want for yourself. And 2012 adds up to a 5, and that 5 is a healing frequency. So 2012 energy should be used as a healing for the self and for humanity and for the spiritual God mind within. We should all be using this time to fix ourselves mentally, emotionally, physically, in every way possible, so that we don't ever have to go through these kind of experiences again. You know, that's why so many people are being born on the world now. There's over 7 billion people on the planet. There's never been so many people on the planet at one time. So it's like this giant show that's a once in an eternity show, and so everyone's coming to see it. That's why there's such a crowd, you know, and we have front row seats, and we don't want to waste them. We want to really look at the show, learn from it, and come away from it knowing what we need to do with ourselves, and that's what I would urge everyone out there to do. Look within. And when you change what is within you, then everything that is without and external to you will also change to reflect that inner change.
In your opinion, how do you guys foresee, and Janet, you can go first, how do you foresee the departure of the Illuminati?
I think that's really an excellent question, because you know, again, as I'm talking about the human species transforming, I think that's going to transform as well. And I really don't see the departure in the same way. I think that those who need the oppressors, I think that the Illuminati will depart, or maybe a better way to say it, the ones who are done with that particular lesson, they will depart. And the Illuminati will stay with those who still need the oppressors. And I think that things will continue, you know, quote unquote, to get worse. And worse, again, is a judgment. It's a relative statement. It's just that there are certain people who haven't got it yet. And as we all know, oftentimes we have to be pushed to, we really get to the bottom, because it's only then that we will really get into the resources that we have available. And I know there are a lot of people out there not totally using their resources. You know, a good point you brought up earlier was what people are out there doing. They're being reactive. You know, if something is negative, they're reacting. They're not really going out and searching it out. And that's what's the difference between the general population and the work that Stewart and I do. We are very proactive. We are looking for issues before they become issues. You know, what's going on with me that's a potential trap or a potential something that the Illuminati could use against me? What is out of balance? I want to find it myself rather than wait for the outer world to reflect it back. And a lot of people are not able to do that or interested because they don't care to feel any pain or discomfort or anything that's unusual or out of place. They want to maintain the status quo, whereas we are always looking inside. And sometimes, you know, we have tremendous issues because we're digging them out. You know, if you've got old scars, old bruises, old pains, we are in there pulling them out every single day, every single moment, because we want to find out who and what am I. I am a part of the God mind itself, so by understanding myself, I understand the outer world, I understand the God mind, and I continue to move along. So people must learn to be proactive, and they must understand that being uncomfortable is okay. It's part of the growth process, and that's how change is made. And that's how change is made within you. We are not stagnant people. We are always doing something different. I don't want to be stagnant. I don't want to be oppressed. I don't want anybody in control of me. And the difference is I'm going to do something about it. I'm not just going to sit around and complain. I am going to be part of the solution. I'm just not going to be part of the problem. We're all part of the problem. That's why we're here, if you want to look at it in a judgmental sort of the way. So now I'm going to be part of the solution, and I invite every listener out there to be as aggressive with him or herself as Stewart and I with ourselves, to proactively search it out, to proactively learn that it's okay to be uncomfortable while you grow, and to move along so that you're not part of the Illuminati that is, I believe, going to stay behind and going to continue to oppress a lot of people. That's what they need for their soul development and their soul growth. I don't wish it on anybody, but nor do I take away their lessons, because obviously that's what they've attracted. It's not up for me to judge that.
And I'll give my answer now, and as far as the Illuminati departure is concerned, I see a couple of things possibly happening. You know, I mentioned the Kuiper Belt issue before. I think that one possible event would be that they do come upon the Earth and remove the Illuminati and then put their own control system in, and so we just go from one thing to another. I think I once mentioned on maybe your show or another show about the woman we spoke to in Estonia who was asked, well, what was better when you were under the Nazis or under the Soviet Union? And she said, well, that's like asking me would I rather have a heart attack or a stroke? You know, what's the difference? You know, so you're going from one thing to another. So again, it's really a question of what each individual is going to be. You could be living under the Illuminati or under Kuiper Belt control system or under any Fourth Reich or what have you, and still be totally free, because you do not reflect or project out those issues that restrict other people. That's why, you know, there could be a car accident, a car filled with people, and everyone's killed except for one person who doesn't have a scratch on them because they did not participate in that destruction. So that's what we need to be looking at. It's not a question of whether the Illuminati are here or not, because if you have a mind pattern of abuse, you're going to attract someone or another. You're just going to go from one to another. So who cares about the Illuminati? You know, let them do whatever they want to do. It's their stuff. We have to change ourselves and change what we attract and create around us, no matter what is going on. You know how there are people who could go to sleep even when there's a big party in the next room or a loud noise, and it doesn't matter, they fall asleep and nothing bothers them. We have to be like those people. You know, I have an uncle who's 101 years old, and his secret of life is nothing bothers him. He doesn't get stressed by anything. Everything is good. See, he finds the good and sees the good in everything and all people. And that's what we need to do. We need to look at the positive side of the negative. What has the negative shown us? What do we learn from it? It's really a good thing that it happened so that we could progress and go to the next level. So the end of the Illuminati, or the removal or departure of the Illuminati, is what are you going to depart from within yourself? What part of yourself are you going to eliminate so that you can have a good and wonderful life permanently and eternally? That's what we have to look at, no matter what label we put on it. So that's my challenge to all the people out there who are listening. What are you going to get rid of from within yourself so that you can have a wonderful and positive life?
I can't believe I just looked at the clock and we're almost up. But I want to make a mention. I know a lot of people are going to go back and listen to this show again. And one of the things that I've really enjoyed about this interview is the feminine and the masculine perspective, but yet the merging of one. You guys have really embraced that, and it's really been enjoyable to watch you guys work together, but yet that merging of the feminine and the masculine was really exciting to watch, and I've been sitting here reflecting on that. So people that are watching this again or listening to this again, I just want to give you guys a heads up to start listening for that. It's kind of interesting. Where are you guys going now? We got 7 minutes left. Where are you guys going now? What are we going to see from the Swerdlows?
Well, 3 weeks from today, I will be on my way to Dubai, South Africa, and Namibia, where I'll be doing some research and investigation. And then in January, Janet can explain what's happening here in January.
In January, we have a week-long training program for people who want to learn to do what Stewart and I do based on our hyperspace oversoul work. It's extremely intensive. It's about 12 hours a day with, of course, some eating breaks in there and a time to breathe and stretch a little bit, but it's an extremely intense program. So we have details on the website. We have in April coming up our healing seminar. This one will be called Death, Disease, Detox, and Determination. It's a fascinating seminar that we're putting together right now even. Lots of information coming out on that. We have hopefully a surprise Saturday evening at that seminar in April. Everybody needs to watch the website. I don't want to announce that until we have everything finalized, but things are coming together for something really amazing that Saturday night, so watch the website. We are also planning a upcoming trip to the Soviet Union on a riverboat cruise. We're going to be studying bear frequency, learning how to go within so that you can help your inner rose bloom. Russia, or actually comes from Le Russe, which means rose. And so it's going to be very interesting to use that earth energy to bring ourselves out into a deeper layer and a deeper level. The website, as people will notice, is continuing to make changes. We are upgrading all the time. We started a year-long project actually last June, and so we still have some things that will be coming up and changing. One of the most exciting things that we have is our membership level, our Royal Blue. We encourage everyone to sign up for. It is free. It entitles you to free discounts and a lot of free information that's not available on the main site. And we also have a free e-newsletter that comes with that. We have places for you to make your comments, ask questions. We are now putting our DVDs online, which will make them more available to more people. We are not stagnant people, as I said. We always have a million different projects going on. We don't lack for ideas, and we enjoy all our readers, the participation that's coming. I invite you again to step out of isolation programming. We have a lot more people signed up on our forums that are actually posting. You must step out of that isolation programming and connect on this deeper level with those of like minds, because this is how we develop our force, so to speak. We are gathering our armies, and we are doing it by projecting out the positive and the personal power, and we do not take from each other, but we add to each other and we boost each other. So please release the need for isolation programming. Join the forums. It's a great opportunity.
That was great. And like a minute and a half, could you guys just sum up, like give people advice for the new year? What would you like to leave them with?
I would like to say basically to find your point of personal power. And when you think you can't do something, that is artificial programming. And I want to say, it's BS. It's just forget it. You are the most powerful person that you know. You're the most fascinating person that you know. Get in there, dig around, do what you're supposed to do, and get on with it. Quit complaining. Quit saying you can't. Don't take no for an answer. Persevere. Punch forward. Be determined. Get into your point of personal power and blast off. Let's go into that new year.
Do what you love. Create your own job. There is no economic problem unless you let that affect you. Be your own self. Go within. What is it that you love the most? That's what you need to be doing, and that's what will bring you joy and prosperity and health. Don't be afraid to go out and be who you are. Let your inner self into the outer world and be free.
I was just reading in the chat room where people were saying, I love these guests. So it's been another great show, and thanks, you guys, for showing us so much of an insight of your personalities, but also what you have learned and accomplished, and which will help to enrich our lives. I'm hoping that when you guys get done with some of this stuff, you'll come back, because it's always such a treat.
We would love to.
We appreciate your interest in our work and what you're doing to help enlighten everybody around the globe.
So thank you.
I just drink tea.
Hey, I like tea. I'll go with that.
Yeah, thanks, you guys. It's been great. Stewart, I'm sorry. Did you want to add something?
I just wanted to say thank you for giving us this opportunity to speak to everybody, and we look forward to speaking to them again.
And we will get I'll send it after the show, the archive, so you guys can post it, because I noticed a lot of people joined the chat room at the end when you mentioned that.
Yes.
So it will be easy, but thanks again. And you guys have a great trip, and if you ever need somebody to carry your baggage, please call me.
We'll count on that.
Okay, there you go. Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Bye-bye.
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 Okay.